Welcome to another tutorial video. We're going to be covering something called LBO valuation here, or as I call it, the power of middle school math to reverse an LBO model. So here's the question that came in the other day. I recently completed a leveraged buyout modeling test at a private equity fund, but lost points because they said that my solution for an LBO valuation was not flexible enough. I used goal-seek to back into the purchase price, but they did not like that. Is there a way to build a simple, flexible formula into an LBO model that determines the purchase price based on your targeted IRR and exit year? And the answer is yes, but. And I say but here because you can do this, but you will have to make some simplifications and compromises to get it working properly. So if you watch this video, I am going to take you through the steps to do this. We are going to build up to something like what I have on screen where you can just enter the IRR and the exit year, and it will tell you the exact multiple that you need to pay to earn a certain IRR in this deal. So this is what we're going to build up to, and I'm going to start with this standard model here to show you all the steps required to do it. Now, if you want the files and resources, including both these Excel files, you can go to our leverage buyout and LBO model page and LBO valuation. I will pin this below the video as the first comment there as well. We did cover this topic in a previous video, but I felt that the coverage was not quite as good as it should be, and it basically relied on goal-seek to do this rather than setting up a formula. So let's go into the model and start making some modifications. I'm bringing up here the original version that does not have this functionality built in. The first thing we're going to do is enter some rows down here, and then I will go here and enter the targeted IRR and the assumed exit year. And we can just copy and paste down some input boxes for these. Say year number right here, and then we'll just change the number formatting quickly. So for the targeted IRR, I don't think we really need data validation. I suppose we could enter something and we could say that only decimals between 0 and 1 are allowed if you want to do that, but I don't think it really matters. For the exit year, I think data validation is a lot more important. So if you go to Alt-DL in the PC version of Excel and then go to List, you'll want to go down to wherever you have all the year numbers listed in the model. So I'll allow exits in years 1 through 5 right here, and we won't allow anything outside of that. Now, once we have that, the next thing is that we need to figure out what the exit equity proceeds are, and then based on those proceeds, we need to figure out how much the PE firm needs to invest in the beginning to earn the targeted IRR, whether it's 8% or 20% or 30%. For right now, I'll set this to 25% just to sort of get a standard round number here. And then I'll say exit equity proceeds in year, and then required investor equity. So let's take this, and then we can copy down the formatting for these. Now for the exit equity proceeds in the year, the assumption here is that you already have a functional LBO model. And so if that's the case, you can just use an XLOOKUP function here, and you can look up the exit year, and then you can go down to wherever you have all of your exit equity proceeds, which should be near the bottom in the returns calculations. In this case, I'm going to go up for the lookup array and enter the year numbers right here. And then for the return array, I'll go down to the exit equity proceeds here at the end in the returns calculations, and we have that. Now for the required investor equity, this is where the middle school math comes in because you're going to have to use a bit of algebra to get to this. So I've created some slides here on how to do this. And the basic idea is that if you just have an initial purchase and a single exit, you can use the compound annual growth rate or CAGR formula to calculate the IRR, and then you can back into what the upfront price needs to be. So CAGR equals the ending value divided by the starting value raised to the power of 1 divided by the number of years minus 1. So if the ending value is 200, the starting value is 50, it's 200 divided by 50, and if it's over 5 years, it's raised to the power of 1 divided by 5, and then you subtract 1 from the end of all that. You can use algebra to take this minus 1 and turn it into a plus 1 on the other side. So you're adding 1 to both sides. You do the same operation to both sides, and now it's CAGR plus 1 equals the remainder of this term. Now, to get rid of the raising this to the power of 1 divided by the number of years, you can raise both sides of this equation to the power of the year number, the number of years in your holding period. So to do that, you take the CAGR plus 1 and you raise it to the number of years, and then this term drops out of the right-hand side, and this simply equals the ending value divided by the starting value. And then we can just use algebra again and move the ending value over to this side of the formula. So you divide both sides by the ending value algebraically. So this side now equals CAGR plus 1 raised to the number of years, all divided by the ending value. And then on the other side, it equals 1 divided by the starting value because you've divided the right side by the ending value. Now, continuing with that, at this point, you might be a little bit stuck unless you remember the rules of algebra quite well, but it turns out that what you can do here is just flip both sides of the formula, the equation, because one of the principles in algebra is that if two fractions equal each other, you can just flip the numerator and denominator on both sides and they'll still equal each other. So think about something like 1 divided by 2 equaling 2 divided by 4. They're both 50%. If you flip this, 2 divided by 1 equals 4 divided by 2. So that's a very simple example of how this works. And so here, all we have to do is flip this formula and say that the starting value equals the ending value divided by the CAGR plus 1 raised to the power of the number of years. So let's go back into Excel and apply this and see how it works. So the required investor equity here equals the exit equity proceeds divided by 1 plus the targeted IRR raised to the power of the assumed exit year. So this is what we get if it's year 1. If it's year 5, it's more like 324. And of course, we need to test this. We have no idea if this actually works yet. But to actually test this, we need to continue and progress a little bit further here. Also, this is just the investor equity, but ultimately we want to get to the purchase enterprise value and the purchase multiple required to earn this 25% IRR over 5 years. So let's add a few additional lines here. And I'll say required total sources. I will subtract the fees and minimum cash. And then that will get us to our required purchase enterprise value. And the reason this works, the reason this specific formulation works is that in an LBO model, the total sources must always be equal to the total uses. And in a cash-free, debt-free deal like this one for a private company, the total uses equals the purchase enterprise value plus the fees plus the minimum cash. Therefore, if you have the total uses, to get from here to the purchase enterprise value, you can just subtract these terms in the middle. So let's go down and copy down our unit formatting here again, because I'm being a bit compulsive. For the required total sources, on the sources side of the sources and uses schedule, this equals the investor equity plus the new debt issued. So we have the required investor equity right here, and then we just go up and link to the debt that we're using to fund this deal, 500 million in this case. It's just a simple multiple of EBITDA right here. So we have that. And then we can subtract the estimated fees and minimum cash from our actual sources and uses schedule. And then we can deduct those to get to our required purchase enterprise value right there. And then we can get to our required EBITDA multiple right here. And let's see if this works. So we'll take this and then we'll divide by the LTM EBITDA, or the EBITDA just before this deal took place. So we get to about 7.8x. Let me copy and paste down the formatting from somewhere else so we can pull this in. So 7.8x. So the $50 million question, does this actually work? If I say 7.8x right here for the purchase multiple, do we get to a 25% IRR? Well, I'll copy and paste it in as a value right now, and let's go down and see. We do. We get to a 25% IRR in year 5. So that seems to work. You obviously want to test this a little bit more before you can conclude that everything works perfectly. So let's say that we target a 35% IRR with a year 4 exit. Now we get to a 7.1x EBITDA exit multiple. And if you go down and look at this, right now we're at about a 26 or 27% IRR for year 4. So let's go up and copy and paste in this purchase multiple right here. And so now we get to a 35.1% IRR. It's not exactly 35%, but it's pretty close. It's within 0.1%. So based on this quick testing, this seems to work. I misspelled multiple here, so I'm just fixing this. So it seems like this works pretty well so far. But of course, there is another level to this, which is that typically when you have this type of setup, you want to make the targeted IRR and the assumed exit year actual assumptions into the model. And they are sort of assumptions here, but they're not really model drivers because ultimately the model is still being driven by this purchase multiple up here that we're hard coding. So to go one level beyond this, we can change around the setup slightly, and I can take the targeted IRR and assumed exit year, and I can cut and paste them to go right up here. And let me actually undo that and add another row there. Okay, so let's take these and cut and paste them up here. So we have that. And so now we're going to make it so that the inputs to the model are that targeted IRR and the exit year, and those in turn will tell us how much we can pay for this company. So the entire model is going to be driven by the IRR and exit year now. To fully set this up, we have to link the EBITDA purchase multiple down to the required EBITDA multiple down here. So I'll do that right now. And as soon as I do that, we get this message about circular references in Excel. Now we've covered circular references before. I will just say okay for now. The reason we get a circular reference here is that the transaction fees depend on the purchase equity value, but the purchase equity value also depends on the transaction fees because the transaction fees figure into this where we get into the required purchase enterprise value and the required multiple. So there are a couple of ways that you could solve this, but I think the easiest thing to do is to simply hard code the transaction fees and to say that they're an even 10 million, and we can just format this like an input box. I just used one of our macros to do that to save a few seconds, but it doesn't really matter. You could just enter this as a hard-coded value and format it yourself. And then once you do it like this, the entire model is driven this way. I can remove the input box formatting right here and set it up like that instead. And so now we have a model where if we enter the targeted IRR, such as 20%, the purchase multiple, the purchase enterprise value, the purchase equity value, all those change. And so now the model is being driven in the opposite way of what you normally expect, where the IRR is normally just an output at the end. Now it's actually an input in the beginning, and you've set up an LBO model to calculate the appropriate price that a private equity firm could pay to realize a certain IRR over a certain time frame. Now, all that said, I do want to mention a few footnotes and fine print here. Obviously, circular references are an issue with this type of setup, and if you get circular references, you'll need to find some way around them. We've just chosen to ignore this issue with fees and make them constant, but you could probably come up with better, more clever approaches if you wanted. Another issue is that if you have something like a dividend recap or an add-on acquisition or additional investment, so any additional cash inflows or outflows during the holding period, they're going to break this setup. The issue is that if you think about the CAGR formula, this only works if you assume that there's an initial purchase in the beginning and then an exit at the end. But if there are other cash flows in between, this formula is not going to hold. So you'll have to set this up in quite a different way. Honestly, in this case, we would recommend just using GoalSeek or GoalSeek plus VBA to automate it. It's not really reasonable to write a simple formula to handle all these complexities. It gets very complex, especially if you have cash flows that can occur in variable years or just 1 year or many years. So you probably have to use GoalSeek or use a macro with GoalSeek to automatically update it and refresh the entire file whenever something changes or whenever key assumptions change at the very least. So that's about it for this tutorial. We started off with the model modifications here, and the main points were the ones that I showed you on screen, where we have to enter the assumptions for the targeted IRR, the assumed exit year, then we have to get to the exit equity proceeds in that year. The next step is to back into the required investor equity, and I showed you how to do that with some simple algebra for the CAGR formula. Then we backed into the purchase enterprise value and purchase multiple by adding the debt used to this required equity to get us to our total sources, subtracting the fees and minimum cash to get to the required purchase enterprise value, and then dividing by EBITDA to get to the required EBITDA multiple. We got into some issues with circular references when you make the model truly robust and make the IRR and exit year drive everything, and I showed you how to get around that with a simplification. Also, if you have cash flows during the holding period, contributions, additional investments, things like that, this is not going to work. So in that case, you probably just have to use GoalSeek or VBA to resolve this. That's about it. So hopefully now you know a little bit more about how to handle this situation and set it up in a few minutes in a time-pressured case study or modeling test.